Some things I hear often when I tell people I'm a leadership communication expert. Oh, my leader is the worst. I wish my leader could meet you. And of course, for many a manager out there, my employees have no idea how good they have it. I do so much for them, and they're just oblivious. Today, we're going to consider what everyone should know about the special relationship shared between a leader and a member. Hello and welcome to The Communicative Leader, hosted by me, Dr. Leah O'Million-Hodges. My friends call me Dr. O. I'm a professor of communication and a leadership communication expert. On The Communicative Leader, we're working to make your work life what you want it to be. Leadership is often simmered down to two essential ingredients. We have the people and we have the tasks or the work. But in many organizations, just due to the deadline-oriented and often high-stakes nature of business, those tasks take the front seat. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I might get some flack for saying that, but before we get to the relational, the communicative aspect, and you know we will, my friends, I want to say a few things about the task side of the house. First, we're hired for our expertise, our skill, our knowledge. That's why we're here. Second, for many folks, especially after the pandemic, work isn't the shining crown jewel it once was. I don't mean that in a negative sense either, but for many, the pandemic provided space to reflect, reprioritize, so that for some, even if work was a defining aspect of their personality or primary focus, perhaps things have changed and they go to work to, get work done, right? Maybe not necessarily meet as many social or emotional needs or achievement needs as they had in the past. And there are others out there who see work as work. My dad is one of these. Leah, they call it work for a reason. That was the response I was met with anytime I would complain about any challenge in my first jobs. The point being that for some, a focus on tasks is why they are at work, what they expect from work, and many likely look less and depend less on work to meet social emotional needs than they did before the pandemic. And if this is you and you're listening and you're nodding along, the relationship you share with your manager, it's still essential. You are not off the hook, my friend. You might be a foremost expert in your area, but you'll likely need your manager to allocate you specific resources or sign off on a certain decision, or give their blessing to help create a schedule that's conducive to your work. The relationship we share with our leaders, and leaders out there, the relationships you share with each of your employees, it is an important one. It largely shapes the answer to the following question. What does it feel like to work in this group or to work in this organization? Today, we're going to look at the relationship shared between a manager and an employee. In academic terms, we call this a leader-member relationship. My focus, my goal for this episode, it is to show you how and why this theory matters to you. Me as a leader or me as an employee reporting to a manager? Both. So my friends, we're going to look at how some specific minor communication-rooted changes are going to result in major positive outcomes to this special relationship. We're going to consider what work looks like for those when you have a high-quality relationship with your leader. We're also going to look at what that looks like and how that feels a bit different for those with a lower quality relationship. And finally, we're going to look at how the collection of these leader-member relationships, all of these individual relationships a leader shares with each specific employee, how they add up to influence peer relationships and the team's relationships as a whole too. I want to start with a little bit of history. Yeah, it's okay to sigh right now. It's okay. It won't be long, but I think it's helpful and I'm in charge here, so let's dive in. In leadership literature, before we began to consider and look at the importance of the relationship a manager shares with an employee, the prevailing idea was that managers interacted with every employee the same way. Yep. It was called average leadership styles. And the idea rested on this notion that there was no difference in how a manager interacted with various people, various personalities, or various positions on their teams. Yeah, so you can already see how accurate that likely was, right? It overlooks differences. It overlooks preferences. It overlooks us as unique individuals who have different goals, different ideas, and different inclinations. For example, some respond really well to a leader who uses very direct style of communication. Others, not so much. So after some twists and turns in the scholarly literature, we have leader-member exchange theory, or LMX for short. This is a cool theory, my friends. Yes, I did just put cool and theory together in a sentence, but hang with me. 5 decades of research show us it is generally in your best interest and your leader's best interest and the best interest of your team for you to have a strong relationship with your leader. That's saying something, right? But right now, I'm wondering if you're saying, is this an exaggeration? How can the relationship I have with my manager impact me so much? How does it impact them? And the team, I'm not buying it. I am not buying that my relationship with the leader is going to impact my team. Well, let's think about this some other terms, maybe some more relatable terms. Have you been at a dinner party or a get-together and it was clear that 2 friends, maybe it was a couple or some family members, they were in an argument before they came over, or maybe you're still in the midst of one? The air feels a bit thicker, right? Everyone's on edge. Everyone is able to pick up on this. Sometimes we try to distract them or engage them and try to do a little bit to overcome it. We might talk more. We might try to think of stories or an activity to do. But bottom line, it is impacting the whole, right? Everyone is picking up on this. Same thing at work, my friends. Same thing. So what do you need to know about leader-member exchange? Well, 1, it is considered among the first relational approaches to leadership, and it's people-centered. And it's shifting away from that leader-centered view. So we're moving away from traits or characteristics or particular styles of a leader to think about the unique relationships that emerge between a leader and a member, how these relationships are maintained, how they impact us as individuals, and how they impact the group. Communication, communication, communication. So step 1, how do these relationships come to be? How do we find ourselves in a high quality relationship built on trust, respect, loyalty? Or how do we find ourselves, feeling like we're always in the doghouse with our manager? This takes some time, usually a year, 18 months, 2 years. This is a 3-step process. So step 1, role taking. My friend, you applied, you interviewed, and you were hired. You took a role. Now it is time to show your manager what you can do. This phase, the role taking phase, is about the manager giving you job-related tasks and observing how you perform. Managers are also generally considering how well you fit in the group. Are you assimilating? How are you adding to the group and the overall dynamic and performance of the group as well? This leads us to our second phase, role making. Whereas the first phase tended to be more leader directed, the second is where you really get to take the lead. How so? In role making, it is exactly how it sounds. It's a good time to push the boundaries of the role a bit. Advocate for the projects you're passionate about and that align with your skill set. This phase is about engineering the role to fit you, your goals and your desires, rather than simply continuing to adhere to the list of duties that you were assigned to on day 1. For example, after 6 months, an employee may realize they really enjoy client-facing tasks and see client relations as a career stepping stone. This employee might then offer to take on and lead more client-focused tasks and projects and do exceedingly well in order to be recognized as an expert in this area. In the role-taking phase, if you volunteer to lead additional projects, chair various tasks, You might also find yourself in a position to shed or shift some of those initial role responsibilities. So when you show that initiative and expertise in areas that are valuable to the work group, to the organization, the leader may then remove or reassign some of those other tasks than what you were initially hired to complete. These examples highlight employees experiencing a strong person-position fit. The role-making phase might look quite different for an associate who's having a challenging entry. So instances where the leader doesn't believe the member's done a good job of completing these tasks in the role-taking phase, that employee might never be able to get to the role-making phase. The differences shown here provide an excellent example of how leader-member communication can vary wildly between these different dyads. I can't stress how important it is for you to advocate for yourself here. Is there a project you really loved, or a time you're able to use some of your training and you really shine? Those are the things to both show and tell your manager. Some make the mistake of thinking, yes, I nailed it. Of course my manager is going to know I enjoyed that, or I want to lead additional similar projects. But the manager might also be thinking, they did such a great job. Why didn't they ask to do more? We don't know if we don't show and tell. After this negotiation process, we arrive at the final stage of the relationship, role routinization. Yes, another semi-obnoxious word. Well, maybe just obnoxious here. But what this stage tells us, it's an important one. Generally speaking, the quality of the relationship we share with our leader is now established. It is set. Our relationship is in a routine, so to speak. So what does this mean? Good or bad, it generally means that from here on out, this is how we connect with our manager, what they think of us, how they communicate with us, and what they look to us for. What else? Once we get to this stage, it is very, very difficult to change the quality or the status of the relationship we share with our leader. If you're in, my friends. And if you're out, well, some employees find themselves needing to switch departments or even find a new job in order to feel recognized for what they bring to the table. In earlier episodes, we've talked about in-groups and out-groups, and we laugh because those terms sound ridiculous. I just imagine a group of preteens using this language, but yes, we in the academy, we use it just the same. So let's start with the in-group. These folks have high-quality relationships with their managers. There's trust, there's respect, there's connection. Each party knows they can count on the other. Employees tend to enjoy having a leader who listens to them, who respects them, who counts on them. And in turn, when we feel valued, we're often more likely to engage in citizenship behaviors or helping behaviors outside of the job we were required to do. We also tend to remain more committed to the organization than employees who have a more contractual, let's read between the lines, a less well-developed leader-member relationship. In-group members tend to have more access to additional information, more support, more attractive, more visible projects. What else? In-group members tend to befriend other high-status peers. Means if you're in the in-group, then you have access to additional resources, more feedback, more mentoring, more inside information. This list goes on and on. Why? Well, let's say that your work group peer is also in the in-group. If he, she, they are in a meeting that you weren't in, they're still likely to pass along information if they think it's going to help you. Not in the in-group? This peer might not even know what projects you're on, and there's a greater chance that the meetings that they're in aren't necessarily going to directly apply to the work that you're doing. What's this mean for the other group? Well, just as the name suggests, you're on the outside. Generally speaking, this is a less desirable position to be in. Though in a moment, we're going to talk about why some might actively choose to be a member of the outgroup, or at least to choose not to align themselves so close with the leader. But the experience for outgroup members, it can be a tough one. Not only do those with a lower quality leader-member relationship not enjoy those benefits that in-group members have access to, again, that greater clout, more information, more resources, but they may instead be met with downright crummy behavior. We're talking exclusion. We're talking about having others withhold information, blocking or at least not assisting in career development, even engaging in gossip about that employee. That was a tough set of studies to do, my friends. A while ago, I was interested to see what it felt like for those with low LMX, and the differences were jarring. So now that we have the background on LMX, or leader-member exchange theory, I want us to specifically address the following question. Why does it matter to me? Well, before the pandemic, for many employees, especially American employees, they spent more time at work than they did at home with their families. This has changed a bit with the pandemic and the vast increase in hybrid and remote work. But still, if things are good for you with the leader, the way you experience work, the way you engage with the tasks and others is a qualitatively different experience than if you have a challenging relationship with your manager. Also, when things aren't so good at work, especially if we look around and we realize we're being treated differently than others, our ideas are overlooked, we're not being trusted as a professional, well, a lot of times we bring that home with us. We bring it up at dinner. These feelings can simmer at night and on weekends, and it can impact our experience and sometimes impact our relationships that we have at home. And here's the thing, we spend more time as a follower than we do as a leader. Even when you earn that manager or director or supervisor role, you are reporting to another. Even CEOs report to boards of directors and are subject to the scrutiny of members and the public. The point is, our relationship with our direct manager matters more than we might think. So in terms of why this matters to you, first, I want us to consider the slew of benefits that come with having a high-quality relationship with your leader. My friends, we are talking a lot of positives here. One, you're more likely to be committed to the organization. You have more autonomy in your role, which means that you have the space to make it what you want. You have greater influence with your leader and in the workplace, so people are more likely to listen to your ideas. Enhanced voice, social currency, and work currency. Again, you are seen as an opinion leader. People look to you for your suggestions. You have more satisfaction with your manager, of course, and with the communication that you share. Often more engaging and challenging work assignments. Additionally, you have access to more leadership and organizational resources. We're thinking mentoring, we're thinking professional development, feedback, just simply access and time with the leader. If you have a good relationship with your leader, you're more likely to report higher satisfaction with your career, and again, more frequent promotions and higher earning potential. Sounds pretty good, right? And another thing I want to point out, I think when we think about that list, these positive outcomes we just talked about, it looks like it is focused solely, or primarily at least, on member benefits. So what about the leader? What does the leader gain by working so hard to develop these relationships? Well, let's take a step back, and that helps it to become more apparent on how taking the time to cultivate these high-quality exchange relationships with all or most of your members is going to help you. Consider leading a team of employees who are poised to take on more complex projects. They can do it independently. They go above and beyond to help you and their peers. Leaders who put in the work to develop these individual relationships with each member, I also find that some of their followers have become their trusted confidants. They're advisors. They can help to ease that solitude or loneliness that surrounds titled or formal leadership positions. In sum, my friends, it is really hard to overstate the benefits that come with a high-quality leader-member relationship. And if we're thinking of this list of these positive outcomes, we can also see how it impacts us, of course, at the individual level, but at the team level in our work group, and at the organizational level in terms of our output as well. Well, it is clear we have many benefits that stem from the development of a high-quality relationship. The theory is not without critique. One, it's been long criticized for being a shortcut of leader likability. What does that mean? Does my leader like me? Does my leader not like me? And part of that binary, the in-group or the out-group, having high leader-member exchange or low leader-member exchange, it traces back to LMX homophily. Again, fancy schmancy academic term of saying similarities, right? We tend to grow easier relationships, establish easier relationships with those who are similar, right? So if you share values that are analogous to those held by your leader, if you're in a comparable station in life, maybe you're both new parents or maybe empty nesters for the first time, or you're simply alike demographically, whether it's age, gender, race, hobbies, religion, it can be easier to connect with those because of these shared elements. But what happens if a leader builds a work group with little to no diversity? And again, earlier we talked about there might be times we seek to be outgroup members, or at least not chummy with our manager. And this might be one of those times. Also, if we don't see our leader as someone who has high integrity, if we see them as someone who cuts corners, I wouldn't want to be closely aligned with that type of person either. And other times, we just don't have the desire or extra space in our life. Maybe there are life changes, new arrivals to our family, changes in outside of work responsibilities or priorities, right? These are times when we might find ourselves as a member of the outgroup. Others who have low LMX might simply because that interpersonal connection is not as apparent with the leader as it is with other workgroup peers, and this can be really challenging. So while we looked at the slew of benefits that often come with having a high-quality leader-member relationship, it's also important that we look at downfalls or challenges for those who have a lower quality relationship. So one, oftentimes we can see that there's decreased workgroup diversity, which is a huge drawback. They report feeling unsupported by their leader. It can lead to feeling less engaged and satisfied with the work. We're not likely to remain committed to that organization, which makes sense, right? This tracks. Mundane work assignments, little to no career advancement. We don't feel like we get much feedback and our voice isn't heard. We might even be the recipient of being excluded by our manager or feeling like we're micromanaged or that our manager just doesn't trust that the work that we're doing. These are just a few of the adverse outcomes or disadvantages that can stem from a low quality leader-member relationship. At its worst, LMX can lead to an abundance of demographic similarity, reminiscent of the good old boy network. This can stem from unethical or even illegal behavior where individual members are overlooked or disregarded for promotions or salary increases because they look different than the leader and not simply based on their work quality. Low LMX has also been linked to leaders engaging in unethical behaviors. We've mentioned these, but again, withholding information employees need to do their jobs, taking credit for an associate's work, and having the leader gossip about them to peers or higher ups. And again, as we know, like we've chatted about earlier, once that leader-member relationship reaches the routinization phase, it tends to remain that quality for better or for worse. Considering this, employees who find themselves in a low-quality exchange relationship, you might want to consider an internal transfer or seeking new employment. And I know that might sound extreme, but your workplace experience matters. Your voice matters. Your satisfaction and professional development, your personal development, it matters. And in this workplace, if you are overlooked and your manager has put you in this outgroup and continues to see you this way, talk to you this way, talk about you to others in this way, then it's not likely to change. So now we know more about this impactful relationship. I want us to think about our communication focus for the week. And I want us to think about how a leader's message, the same message, is likely to be interpreted differently by those with high quality relationships, those with an average quality relationship right in the middle, and then those with a lower quality relationship. So I want us to think about this ubiquitous team meeting. So our manager says the following: let's thank Hadley for leading this project. Hadley, hopefully you can engage some of your peers for the next stage of the project. Okay. We're going to start with our high quality relationship. What might Hadley think if she and her leader are connected, if they trust one another, they have that respect developed? Maybe something like, my manager appreciates me and continues to help me to grow. Well, what if Hadley has a decent working relationship? Not necessarily the closest, but certainly not contentious either. Her takeaway of the same message might be something like, this feels like a mixed message. I guess I'm going to have to chat with some people and get their take and their feedback and buy-in on the project. And now, what if she has a low quality relationship with her leader? The takeaway might be, wow, I really thought I'd done a good job. Maybe I need to think about transitioning this project to someone else. Yeesh. We can see how one message can be interpreted very, very differently based on the quality of the relationship we share with our leader. Let's look at one more scenario, a message delivered during a performance evaluation. Okay, here's our message. Johnny, you're right where I expect you to be at this point, and I'd like to see you begin to propose and develop some of your own projects. Okay, so Johnny has a high quality relationship with his leader. They have two-way communication, again, trust, respect. What Johnny hears might be something like, yes, my manager and I are in lockstep. Well, let's say Johnny feels like he's right in the middle of the pack in terms of his relationship with the leader. His interpretation is likely to be a bit different. Okay, I'm adjusting fairly well, but maybe should do a bit more so my manager sees me as a leader. Let's say Johnny has low LMX, a relationship that is only contractual, where he and his leader just can't seem to connect. What he might hear is, I don't know what else I could possibly do to be recognized and get ahead here. So what's the lesson? Well, based on the relationship we share with our leader, our workplace experience shifts. We can listen to the same message, but all hear it differently. My leaders out there, I want you to really think about this. It is likely very helpful for you to reflect on how each specific employee is likely to hear or interpret a message. You can then better help them understand your intent. So let's return to that latter example, the performance review message. Johnny, you're right where I expect you to be at this point. Now I would like to see you begin to propose and develop some of your own projects. Regardless of relationship quality, it is important to be specific. What does right where I expected you to be? What does that mean? Does this mean they're performing at an average level? Does it mean that based on their previous work experiences, you had high expectations and they're meeting those? Now the second part of the statement. Now I'd like to see you begin to propose and develop some of your own projects. How many? Do you have any in mind? What's the scope? What is the process? Clearly identify boundaries, available resources, target dates, and other expectations that will set your employee up for success. The leader-member relationship is exactly that, a relationship shared between two people. Often, employees are left to try and make sense of a leader's directives or feedback or comments. One easy way to improve this relationship is by being specific with those expectations. So for our takeaways, LMX theory, it's your friend. Part of the reason for this theory's longevity lies in its simplicity. It's not particularly hard to apply or understand, and at the same time, it illuminates these fundamental truths in the development and the impact of the leader-member relationship. I also want you to remember that each leader should strive to develop a high-quality relationship with each follower. Well, it was originally thought that, maybe a leader should develop 1 or 2 really mature relationships with select followers. What we're seeing now is that to cultivate the best outcome, to be the most people-centered, but also to have that eye on production as well, is to get to know each member individually. It asks a lot of our titled leaders out there, but in terms of being ethical and equitable, it also allows you to figure out how to connect with each team member so they are in a position to thrive. Finally, I want you to look at a leader's communication patterns. These are very telling for both leaders and members. So members out there, if you are aware of your leader's communication tendencies, it can help you to figure out how to interpret a message. What about situational factors, such as organizational pressures or deadlines? Leaders, do you realize you're short with specific members or you're always in a rush? That's a cue to you to consider to be more intentional with your communication and your time with this teammate. At the end of the day, this organizational relationship is an important one because what it can lead to: promotions, mentoring, and satisfaction, or what it blocks or prohibits. Well, this week we looked at formal leaders. Next week we're shifting gears to consider informal leadership and emergent leadership. In plain English, my friends, we are looking at how you are a leader with or without a title. All right, my friends, that wraps up our conversation today. Until next time, communicate with intention and lead with purpose. I'm looking forward to chatting with you again soon on The Communicative Leader.